Great job on making it this far into the course. And I hope you're having some fun with the content and working with JSON because it can get fairly challenging to pull back all of this data. So I wanted to simplify what we've been doing, and I'm going to get rid of a whole bunch of this content here, and I'm going to simplify person. So let me just clean that up again. Save, let's refresh. So there we go. So we've got person, we've got last name, we've got name is Miller. So last name is Miller and name is Joe. So the interesting thing here, and this is important part to note, that when we pull back JSON objects or JavaScript objects, we can do person name, and we see that Joe comes back. But what happens if we want to get the last name in this case? So we can't do space last name. It won't work. So there is another option. And this option is that we can bracket around, so we can do a quote, single or double, it actually doesn't matter. And this is going to be unique with JSON. You can return back that value. You can do it with JavaScript objects as well, but in general, you don't want to be leaving these named spaces. So you want to flip back to JSON in order to pull that information back. So that's an important thing to note. And with JavaScript objects, you don't have the spaces, and usually there are some naming conventions as well. So you wouldn't call it uppercase name, you'd do something like, and then here would be, if you want to do last name, you would get rid of that space. So this is what it would look like in the JavaScript object. And then of course we don't need the quotes at that point, because then we can return back values. We can do something like person and last name, and then that works as an object. So we're not breaking any rules. We don't have any white space in there that's messing with our JavaScript return. So there are also some other advantages as well, because we can do things more dynamically when it comes to getting values, especially when we use the bracket format. So the dot notation is cleaner, it looks a lot better, and it's more commonly used. But there are cases when you might want to use this type of format. So if we did something like car1, and we'll go back and we'll give Joe some cars back again. So we'll give him a Mustang, and then his car2 was pickup truck, so F-150. And save. So let's refresh. And so now Joe's got some cars. And with these values, we can return back the value of car, but we can do this more dynamically. So watch this. This is going to be really interesting. So let's first set a variable, and we'll sell it for a counter, and we're going to set this one as a value of 1. So CNT is equal to 1. And now let's pull back person and let's grab car, but we're gonna do a little formula here. So we know we want to get the value of car, but we can also concatenate it together with the number. So this is equivalent to doing car1, but we did it more dynamically. And this is where you can have some real magic happening, because we know that this is turning into a string because we're doing a number and a string. And in JavaScript, the rule is that if you attach a number to a string, it becomes a string. And then we're returning back the string value of car1 so that we can return it back. So this is the same thing as if we do something like, this should be var, we'll do var str equals car or car2. And now we can do person, and we can do the quote here, person. And within here, we can get that string value. And this is the same thing as typing it in here. And that's where, again, we can get really dynamic and have a lot of fun with this, because if we increment CNT plus 1, so now CNT is equal to 2. So if we go back and if we have that same statement that we had earlier where we do person car plus CNT, what do you think is going to get returned? Is it going to be a Mustang, or is it going to be an F-150? And if you said F-150, you're correct, because now we've made this dynamic. So I want you to do this, to try this out for yourself and get comfortable with having these more dynamic values that you can return back. And this of course, makes it better within the script. You can do more things, and you opens up the door for more opportunities and possibilities. And normally this would have been done in an array, so we could loop through the array and we can have the different makes and colors and so on. So that was making it a lot more dynamic, but this is just another way, and this is also demonstrating how we can output that object value or that object key and then return back the value using the key. So we had an opportunity to see how it works with the space, and we also had an opportunity to see how it works dynamically. So try this out for yourself. Open up your editor, create a simple JavaScript object. You can increment by 1, 2, however you want, and simply create a variable, so holder, for the name. So just call it string 1. And first we'll do car. And then do another one that's got a count of 1. And now what I want you to do, using these values, return back the value of car, and then also console log out the value of car too. So try it out for yourself, and I'll show you the solution coming up. So the solution for this one, now there are a number of solutions, so there's not just one. There's a number of ways to do this, but we can do person, and we can do the bracket format to return back that information, and we can do string 1 and then add CNT, and then we could do CNT and increment CNT, and then we could do the same thing, or we could create a loop to do that as well. So again, number of ways to do that. So let's see if we actually get back Mustang and F-150, and we do. So go ahead, try it out for yourself, try a bunch of different variables and values, and get familiar with creating these and outputting that content, selecting and getting those values dynamically.